Hi everyone, here I am to make another video, and if you saw my last video, you'll have known that I completed a second program at WGU. So in a way, I thought it would be useful just to give a little bit of an update as to how I'm doing since that completion and kind of what are my next steps. I also want to share a little bit about what I thought of the last program because I did feel the experience was a little bit different than the first time, and I know I already made a video to talk about that, but I'll just kind of give a general summary of that, and maybe I'll start with that, so stay tuned. So I did the Master's of Education, and that was in Learning and Technology. And my understanding of the program is it's a little bit older compared to some of the newer programs that were released recently, and I definitely had a strong sense that the program was a bit outdated. And that did kind of affect how I felt about the program. For example, I had to do a project dedicated to integrating technology in the classroom, and I felt like I was talking about technology that was pretty standard for most professionals in the world of work nowadays. So for example, I was talking about the use of Google Docs and how it can be a very productive tool. And at one point, I just found that the rigor that I was seeking, or kind of that learning experience that I was hoping for, wasn't quite there. And I don't think that's necessarily true for everyone. It's very possible that some people who go in that program feel like they get a lot out of it because maybe they're talking about instructional design concepts that they've never dealt with before. But a major reason I was able to complete the program so quickly was because I had a lot of the background in that area. I still had a sense that I would be learning new content or maybe getting different perspectives, and I think I did get some of that. I think anytime you do a lot of writing, such as kind of academic papers, I also had to do a couple websites and a couple different presentation designs. It gives you a chance to really reflect on your work, especially if you're basically doing tasks as it relates to your job. And so that gave me an opportunity to reflect. Now, I feel like if I compared this program to the one I did previously, which was in curriculum and instruction, it was another master's, I felt like that one was more diverse, some of the concepts that I was learning. It had more variety, and I also felt like I was just learning newer material, so it was more interesting to me. I don't regret doing the Master's of Education, the one that I just completed, because I still felt like I still learned a lot from just the process of doing a lot of paper writing and applying my learning into a formal educational context. And if I was to have to go back and decide if I was going to do that program, I'm not sure I would have chosen that one for me. But again, I feel like there are many educators that would benefit from doing that program that don't know a lot about instructional design, principles and practices, as well as kind of the use of technology in the classroom. I think overall, WGU does have a certain degree of rigor into their courses, but I don't know if it's comparable to certain schools that have maybe more assessments and more collaborative work, that it becomes more complex when you're dealing with other people and other perspectives. And so, it did kind of start to change my perspective on, how much do I enjoy that independent learning for the sake of learning. I think it's really useful for those who want to get a credential in an accelerated way, or for those who aren't overly concerned to deepen their learning. But this could just differ from program to program. It's very possible that maybe some programs are more rigorous, or maybe some programs or courses are more in-depth. Also, there are probably programs where the learning compounds a bit more. I do find that the learning compounded a bit. So for example, I learned about a learner analysis, and then I learned about a needs analysis, and then I kind of learned about how to instigate a whole kind of instructional process. And I think there is kind of building blocks in that process. However, I don't think they were foundational to one after the other, and therefore I couldn't really deepen it too much. I could deepen it to a certain extent. Now, if you remember from my previous video, I was very interested in doing a program based on learning, and that was my main objective. So that's probably where this critique is coming from. Now, when I came back to doing a few more videos on YouTube, I had mentioned that I was interested in pursuing a doctoral degree after completing the WGU program. And that is something that is still on my agenda. I think for me, maybe the rigor that I'm seeking is at that level, but I do worry though that if I don't find the right program, that again, I might be just tapping into my existing knowledge and not really augmenting my learning potential. So I had talked about 𝗀𝗃𝗯 as being a really good option for me at the time because it had a program that was competency-based and I could go at my own pace. I could accelerate. I'm sure there are people who are in that program that are able to do it, a whole doctoral program, in under a couple years, which is, quite remarkable for a doctoral program. But, I'm not sure if I'm interested in accelerating a doctoral program. And I think I kind of want to think about what my objectives with the doctoral program would be, because I think I am very capable of doing one, and I'm capable of doing one in an expedited fashion, but I want my learning to be meaningful. I also looked at reviews for 𝗀𝗃𝗯, and I came to the realization that there are a lot of students who don't actually graduate that start programs. I don't have the exact number, but I think it has a relatively low graduation rate compared to other schools. So I'm sure they're very good at recruiting people and getting people into programs, but maybe they're less successful, even compared to WGU, at retaining students and keeping them motivated throughout the whole program. Now, with a doctoral program, which traditionally they can take at least 4 years, you do obviously have to have a strong motivation and a strong dedication to completing it. And therefore, you need a lot of support, and you also need a lot of purpose behind that program. When I started to look at the numbers based on like tuition, I did find that I could probably save quite a bit of money if I accelerated the program, because I could complete the program completion in maybe half the time. However, again, I'm not sure I want to accelerate a doctoral program, so I don't know if I would be saving money, because I am a Canadian student, and therefore I'm also paying an exchange rate that's, doesn't work in my favor. So I obviously had to decide whether I was going to continue with enrolling in that program and starting it, or basically declining the offer. Eventually, I decided that I would decline the offer and look at other programs. Now, in no way does that mean that 𝗀𝗃𝗯 isn't a good university, and I think that there are probably many people who are satisfied with their learning experience, but I want to look at what else is available. Now, I looked, a few other universities that people had talked about, which, for example, would be Liberty University, and there are a lot of programs that are online and that are self-directed, and I believe their courses are in smaller chunks, which is quite nice, because then you can finish a course quicker than maybe a more traditional university where you complete it in, like, let's say 3 or 4 months. I still found that for a Canadian that the university would be a little bit expensive. I think for a doctoral course it's like $595 per credit. And they did have a Canadian reduction, like a discount for Canadian. So I thought that might help. But there was kind of some concerns around the university for me, because I had talked to some people in their enrollment department, and I'm very used to doing that because I like to call up, ask a bunch of questions. And it felt like they were really pushing me to start a program. And I was like, oh no, I'm just trying to get information. I'm not interested in starting like right away. And they were asking me on the phone, if I would like to receive phone calls and texts from them. And I said no. And I had to kind of give a verbal disclaimer that I didn't want them to call me and kind of put sales pitches forward for enrolling. But the funny thing is that even though I did that and they agreed that they wouldn't, that they still have been calling me. And they call me, maybe once a week. And I've been telling them to stop calling me. So I think those kind of different signals to me are a little bit off-putting. So in my mind, I kind of put Liberty University to the side for now. So I started to look at programs within Canada, which, I kind of originally was hoping to do, is kind of programs within my own country. But the only thing is a lot of the programs at the doctoral level are in person, and the ones that are online, they are still very structured. Like, they have very specific days of the week that you have to meet for synchronous classes. And I wasn't sure if I want to do that. However, thinking about it more, I would like to kind of go back to kind of a contemporary and a traditional model for a doctoral program, where I do have online classes, which is in my mind more contemporary, but having maybe 1 day a week for a class where I can meet with other people, do more discussional ways of learning, so seminars, and then from there, kind of having the assessments that I can do on my own, and having a supervisor that would help me kind of in my research that I have a very strong alignment with. So it's not just paired up with somebody who, can manage a project with me, but also has a strong interest in my research interests. So I've been reaching out to some universities and some supervisors, potential supervisors at these universities, and generating conversations. And I did find one in Canada, but they have a program that's relatively new, and it's modeled after the master's programs. And so I'm still kind of investigating it, and I wouldn't be starting definitely right away because I have to go through a pretty rigorous application process where I have to submit some of my past writing, I have to submit a pretty thorough CV document, and I have to submit a letter of intent and references and my transcripts, and I've been to a bazillion universities, so I have to go through that process of collecting them all and sending them. So it will take some time, but it is something that I'm keen to do. You know, if I don't start that program for a year, if I end up getting admitted, then I think in that time I will take some online courses that are more similar to that model. So that's where I'm at with what I'm aiming to do next. And you know, you can stay tuned to hear more about how I kind of want to move forward with my educational journey, and hopefully I can still offer some insight on some useful tips and tricks on how you might navigate your journey as well.